Rod, thank you very much for the invite. It's great to be here. Feels like I was just here. When was that? A couple months ago, I think. Came down for a special session. Rapha, it's great to share the stage with you.
Same.
And I'm glad you came north, all the way to Nashville. I went south.
It's cold for Brazilian, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's right. It's very cool.
It's going to get worse.
So this is it's an interesting opportunity for me because I get to ask a lot of the questions. I wanted to do something a little different. All day I've been listening, and there's been a lot of amazing material, a lot of information. Hard to kind of digest all of it. Anytime I come to, especially here, I find this to be like a very kind of personal journey, and I run into a lot of people that are on a personal journey, and they're here for the day to network, to meet people, to kind of like explore the path into Bitcoin, right? Like, or go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. So I really wanted to start with, like, what's your journey? Like, what was your story? Why here? Why Bitcoin? Why Bitcoin mining?
I'll try to summarize. But before that, it was here a year ago with Rod, and Rod asked a lot of questions about, so how big is Elektron? What you guys are doing? And Mike is the only guy that actually knows how big we are. Or at least he has a sneak peek because it has, a lot of hash rate that we have goes through Foundry and a couple of other pools. I'm not going to be precise, but I'm going to get closer to your question. But before that, I grew up in Brazil. I think that I was primed to be a Bitcoiner from a very early age for two reasons. One, I grew up loving computers. I started coding when I was 7 years old. Always loved computers. I don't know why, but just attracted me. But more important than that is I grew up in hyperinflation, like crazy hyperinflation, to the point that, I remember like going to supermarket with my mom, and they had this guy that his whole job was just changing prices like every day. So he would go from row 1 to row 10, and my mom would tell you, just keep an eye on him, wherever he is, just pick the stuff before him. So you kind of grow up like knowing that money can actually lose value pretty much overnight, as it did. Like, she would give me money, like, take this money to school, you're going to eat your lunch, don't bring anything back, spend everything, because if you bring the money back, it's going to be worthless by the end of the week, right? So that really shapes you. Brazil, in many senses, if you look in the 80s, 90s, was a hopeless country because people couldn't see, the value of their money in the long term. They couldn't save, right? And in times when they saved, I remember, I tell the story. So like the first time that I saw my father crying was I remember being sitting at 9:00 news in Brazil. It's really not late, but that's usually, after the soap opera, you had the news. And I remember, the Minister of Economics coming in and saying that the savings were confiscated. And at that time, because inflation was very high, everybody would have their money in savings account, and pretty much all of our money was gone overnight. He actually didn't have money to pay his employees the next day because the money was literally confiscated, right? They didn't use confiscation. They say, no, we're just keeping it here. No, we're going to give it back at some point. But guess what? They gave it back when it was worth significantly less, in the future. So it's a very long way to tell that, I think I was very lucky to be primed by all these experiences to kind of, when I saw Bitcoin for the first time, it kind of clicked to me. It really made sense for several reasons. The last one, which again, luck is everything in life. I remember when I went to college, we had the professor that, most of our professors would teach us like Keynesian economics. And this guy would teach us Austrian school economic, which at that time, this was like in the late 90s, right? Nobody knew what the Austrian school economics was. And we were reading Hayek, and Mises and everything else. So, the idea of free markets, I remember that time, he having a discussion with the Keynesian professor saying, yeah, no, central banks shouldn't exist. And saying that at that time was like, even for me, I was like, no, that's a little bit too much, right? So when Bitcoin, came, and like everybody else, like you go through the journeys, and, the first time I saw Bitcoin, I kind of like, yeah, that looks like, funny internet money. I don't want to touch that. And then the second time, like, oh, maybe there's something there. But the third time, you're like, actually, this, it's you have a limit cap, cannot be confiscated, right? It's written in code. So for me, it was very easy, I think, to grok Bitcoin. But then I had the challenge of like, I worked in Wall Street for most of my career. I had the challenge of trying to convince or trying to orange pill people from Wall Street. And up to today, that's still challenging.
Yeah.
But that's the story.
It's amazing. It's hard. I grew up in the US, right? So you hear of these stories, and it's hard for me to get my head wrapped around like what that's actually like. Um, but I will say over the last 8 years, in terms of my journey into the space, I've realized in the US we just have this like slow bleed.
It's worse,
It's
probably.
worse. Yeah. Like people don't understand that it's happening. Like there's
Like
no
frog and boiling, slow
Yeah,
boiling.
yeah, it really is. It really is. And I think every day more and more people start to wake up to it, and which is exciting. And I think the miners play an important role in terms of securing the network. And I think this was supposed to be about the state of large scale miners. I was glad to see CleanSpark here, but most of the public miners aren't here this year, right? They're all pivoting into AI. So I'm
I
excited that
love
you're
it.
here. I know, all right? So I think like Elektron has kind of been this mysterious entity. And I was here last year and I was kind of laughing when the question came up. Um, so you're on stage again. Um, Tell us about Elektron. Like
Yeah.
feels like your coming out party, maybe.
We've always been like Bitcoin mining is a very particular industry, right? Because I joke like the Bitcoin protocol doesn't care if I have the best marketing team and the best logo, right? I'm going to mine the exact same amount of electrons and I'm going to put the same amount of electrons, get the same amount of Bitcoin, right? At the end of the day. So when we build a company, first of all, our team is very proof of work and we like building, right? That's what we like doing. I like coding, the rest of my team likes doing spreadsheets, right? That's what we do on the day-to-day deploying machines, right? And we've been doing that for, I don't know, for longer than 2 years now. We didn't feel the need to be very open, quite honestly. It's changing, I think, for several reasons. One of them is, of course, we want to give back to the community in different ways. And, other reasons like, and slowly it's inevitable because we got to a size that people's already know. It's very interesting to know, I've been even recently, I've been with some of the public company CEOs, and they still have no idea, right? They have. So how big are you guys? I'm like, yeah, we're big. Like, and they are thinking like, oh, one of them told me, oh, so you guys are like a couple of exahashes. And I'm like, yeah, a little bit more. So right now, and we've been a little bit more open about that. We're close to 50 exahashes in total. So that positions us across some of the largest miners out there. Huge plans of growing. We've been going back to the topic, I think, of, large scale miners. We've been extremely lucky to have Tether as our funder from day one. They're super aligned with what we do. And, I think one of the challenges, quite honestly, that if I was a CEO of a public mining company, maybe I would behave the same way, is that managing capital is challenging, right? This is a very volatile industry, very uncertain. They work quarter by quarter, right? I work epoch by epoch, so different thing. And hopefully will continue to be that way for forever, right? And it's very hard when you're CEO of a large public mining company and you can sign a contract with Amazon, Google, whoever it is. It's going to secure revenue. It's going to show massive revenue growth, right? It is the right decision for them. They are doing the right thing, I think, for their shareholders. For us, it's different. Like we like mining. Different than most people would say. I think mining is still a very profitable business. If you have, efficient fleet, if you have access to good energy, to low cost of energy. Just like if you look at get the back S21 XPs, Hydros, and U1s, equivalents are like 14 cents, right? You can find 14 cents power in a lot of places. The machines are expensive. You need capital to buy the machines, right? But even that, there are a lot of things that are said and repeated in our industry that if people really ran the numbers and, they'll find out that there are lot of them are myths at the end of the day. And I think for people that do it in a very lean way, which is one other thing we do. We're a very small team. We're 33 people running one of the largest mining operations in the world, right? But if you're very lean, if you're very focused on cost, if you're very efficient the way that you do it, and if you have a partner that, is going to withstand the cycles of Bitcoin with you, I think this is one of the best business out there. The only thing that it doesn't beat is buying Bitcoin. Buying Bitcoin is better than mining. And I tell this to everybody all the time.
I say the same thing, but maybe that's because you don't want any competition, right? I think you brought up a point that I just wanted to kind of hammer home. Maybe is this uh, idea that if you're going to get into the space, you have to have a long-term view, and I think we were lucky when we started Foundry, being part of the DCG family, where Barry was very much like, I don't care what happens month to month, quarter to quarter. Think in terms of decades, right? How's this going to play out over the next 10 years? And what are the tools and solutions that we need to build to help the industry over a long time period? And I think it seems like Tether's taking the same approach, right? And that is an incredibly like freeing from a leadership perspective. It's very freeing in terms of being able to make the right decisions for the long term. And I guess I just hammer home as people are thinking about getting into the industry. It's one of these. I think you have to think for yourself long term. Like this isn't a space where you want to just like dabble in. Like either you kind of have to make a commitment, and you have to go all in, and you have to go all in, not in terms of like, hey, how's this going to work for the next 12 months, but think of like what's going to happen over the next 5 years for you, and what's your journey look like in the space, and be committed, because there's a lot of ups and downs, right? Like this is it's a very tough market. It's very volatile. Um, there are moments where you think it's all going to be over. So as we think about, like, we've been through this roller coaster ride a couple times. How do you see the market playing out over the next, we're halfway through this epoch, kind of the next 2 to 5 years? We were talking a little bit about consolidation. Like, how do you see things playing out?
Yeah, think we already seen some trends that are very interesting. One of them, if we think about the mining sites, right, and competition for power, there is already kind of like a divergence between the sites that are very high quality sites, the sites that will be AI, HPC sites. These sites, are selling for like, I don't know, $1 million plus per megawatt, right? We have no interest in that. Extremely expensive. I actually don't think that, people are going to be making money on these, whoever's buying for the long term, but it doesn't matter. But then you have some sites, in remote areas, they're never going to be AI HPC sites that, are trading at the discount where they should be, because these guys try to do something with AI HPC. They figure out they don't have a market, and now they're trying to sell, pretty much at any cost. I think this is an opportunity for a lot of miners. It's of course smaller, it's harder to find, but the other thing that it's starting to emerge is the consolidation between the energy markets and the financial markets. It's getting closer and closer together. I always said this. I think that at the end of the day, there's going to be at some point that, financial systems, energy systems are all going to be integrated. And Bitcoin is exactly that already, right? By code. Both of them, both on the mining side as well as on the money side, right? And we're starting to see that. Like, I'll give you one story. So being from Brazil, I've always been looking at, I need to mine in Brazil, I need to mine in Brazil. Most of our operations are in the US. We've never mined in Brazil. We just started a site in Brazil. And then as we were having conversations in Brazil, right? So I remember having the first conversation with an energy company there, and they're like, well, but there's a lot of curtailment here in Brazil. And I'm like, no, I don't like curtailment. I don't want to be I want 100% uptime. And then he turns to me, he's like, no, you don't understand. The curtailment here is on the power management side. We have to shut down the power because we can't be putting it back to the grid. And I'm like, oh, that curtailment I like a lot. So there's problem areas like that, they need to offload the power. Like they build a massive amount governments doing what they do best, right? They oversized subsidies through solar and wind generation. Now you have massive solar and wind generation in the northeast of Brazil. By the way, one of the sunniest, windiest place on Earth. So really good place for that. But they don't have anywhere to put the energy. And they're telling me like, no, now we're buying all these batteries to store the energy. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Oh, because then I can sell to the grid. We put container there, for older ASICs. You turn on whenever you want, right? And you monetize immediately. And you could see that immediately, like it turned a light bulb on there. I was like, oh, we can do that. And then when you run the numbers and you show them, instead of paying, this huge amount of money, having these batteries out there, going to deteriorate a long time, right? They're starting to start to understand that. So I think to your question, I think we're going to see a more and more integration between energy companies, financial companies, Bitcoin mining companies to offload that, take that power, I think, in better, more efficient ways than we had before. And this is going to lead to, I think, a massive investment in energy, because that's one thing, the more you consume, the more you develop, and better energy, usage can lead to more efficient energy usage. And for human development, that's the best thing that we could ask for, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of that. We are probably going to see cheaper energy prices, not in the short term, but I don't know, 3-5 years from now. I think we are, because you're going to be using it more efficiently. It's going to lead to building. And I think energy is going to be cheaper than what it is right now. So I'm extremely bullish in our industry. And the other thing, we were joking about, thinking about mining versus just about buying Bitcoin. It's a question, of course, I get a ton. I'm biased, of course, but I'm extremely bullish in Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, mining, you're long the Bitcoin asset and you're short the network hash rate growth, right? So I think Bitcoin price is going to outgrow in the long term the network hash rate growth significantly, right? Particularly this year. We'll see. I always bite my tongue when I talk about when I try to make predictions about hash rate growth, but I do think we're going to see a slowdown this year. There's a lot of, we don't see a lot of buyers out there. We hear all the time that we are the only buyers of ASICs at volume right now. So I don't see a lot of machines coming online in the next year, but I don't know. I may be wrong with that. I've been wrong with that, but I think it's a very good trade to be on right now, long Bitcoin and then short network hash rate growth, which is what mining is at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Because over the last few weeks, I've becoming more and more convinced that this is exactly the time to buy machines and plug them in.
Wrong time. Nobody
Oh, yeah.
buys machines. Mining is a bad
Ross,
investment.
like, yes, call me. So, because it reminds me of like the end of 2019 when we were getting ready to start Foundry. It was the deep, dark or a bear market. Everyone was depressed. There was nobody buying machines. And literally Barry was like, I don't know, go buy all you can buy. And it was a similar experience of what you're having right now. Is you're showing up and the manufacturers are like, yeah, you're the only one. So I do think it's
Sometimes I wonder if I'm wrong.
I don't know. Everybody that had money that can raise money right now, they're all pivoting to AI. So there's so much pressure on them to spend on the AI side. And as you know, like the AI consumes a lot of capital. Like it's silly the amount of capital that it takes to build these data centers. So I think it's for those that remain in mining, it's a great time.
And to that point, I think it's a significantly less risky business than AI HPC, because not only it's less capital intensive, somebody was mentioning this earlier here, which is absolutely true. Like, look at the evolution of ASICs, right? And what happened a long time. Like AI HPC, I think they are still in the nascent part of the technology ramp up, where you are going to see step functions. We're not going to see I don't think so in SHA-256 hashing. We're not going to see a step function in the short term. They're absolutely going to see that, and that's going to wreck. We've seen that in Bitcoin mining, right? It's going to wreck a lot of people when that happens.
Yeah, yeah. People are absolutely going to get wrecked. I was just thinking what a crazy world we're living in as we're sitting here talking. uh, Elon is, you know, at Davos right now talking to Larry Fink about doing AI in space. And Elon's a pretty aggressive guy, but he's like, yeah, it's within 3 to 5 years. And I'm not betting against him, right? But then it for me, one is like, wow, it's going to be just this crazy world we live in. I had a couple thoughts. The one is you probably should start Bitcoin mining in space first. That's a good way to experiment, work out all the kinks before you do the AI. But if you can really pull that off, that just means all the AI that's on the planet is going to go to space, and then we get lots of power again. So it's
Exactly.
good. Like net, it's always going to be good,
It's good for us.
It's always good for us. So we have a couple minutes left. I thought I wanted to leave a few minutes for questions. Um, so yeah, let's ask some questions. Anyone have questions? Oh,
Yeah, I'll bring it to you.
of course. Cam.
Hi. Just a quick question. I know a lot of us have been in the space for some years now, and we've always talked about IPPs and behind the meter mining catching stride with the AI bid into the front of the meter, the greenfield markets. Is this the time where we start to see that as the next capital entrance into the space finally?
I think, every week that goes by, the utilities are starting to figure out this idea of a large controllable load and how important it is and how much they need it. And so I think it's just a matter of time. Unfortunately, the utilities move very slow, right? But the minute that starts to open up, it's going to be massive for us. And I actually think the utilities will be the customer.
It is happening already, slowly, but it's exactly that. I think it takes time, but it is happening.
I'm sure the utilities have like trade shows, but I have a feeling that's where we're going to end up. I don't think they'll be as much fun as Bitcoin conferences, but that's where we'll be selling product.
So I will say, imagine if we have actually with Michael's help and the ECD. Is Nathan Buttrey in the audience here? Nathan, where's Nathan? Stand up and raise your hand. He's the CIO over at the ECD, and they have been playing a huge role in getting these utility companies. I think we have 136 in the state of Tennessee, and all those executives, we're going to try to get them to Imagine If.
I think it's great. And I think TVA's been a huge mover in that direction. Obviously, ERCOT is experiencing it on a massive scale in terms of controllable load, right? Like we can see it at Foundry. I can tell you when it's cold in Texas. Hey, like I just look at the chart. I'm like, yep, all the hash rate's gone. We turn off a gigawatt or 2 gigawatts worth of power. I'm super curious this weekend how it's going to play out, because the last time they had a big storm, right? They had all the blackouts, but they didn't have this controllable load like they do now. And I think that's going to help them, hopefully, quite a bit.
I'm going to give it to Brady for a question.
This is a question more for you, Mike. I know that like a big thing that we talk about all the time in Bitcoin is, especially nowadays, is just decentralization. How are we keeping things decentralized as the big players get bigger? It's like, what are the steps that a company like Foundry is taking to ensure that Bitcoin mining remains a decentralized operation?
Great question. Right? Oh yeah. So here's, I think we've actually done more to decentralize the Bitcoin network than almost anybody else. And why do I say that? Because when we started, China dominated the Bitcoin mining scene. They made the machines, they had most of the hash rate, they controlled the pools, right? Our goal was to bust up that monopoly. And that's what we've done. We created the tools, the financial products, the pool to enable the capital markets in the United States to embrace miners. These publicly traded miners couldn't be publicly traded without what we've done. So now we are the counterbalance to China just totally dominating the space. In terms of further decentralization, like we're all for SV2 or Stratum V2. Like we'd love for the miners to be making their own templates. Today, what we find is most miners, other than maybe this guy, like they don't care, right? That's not their biggest priority, but we think it's a priority, and we're moving in that direction to enable more decentralization from that standpoint. But you really, to compete globally, the fluctuations in mining blocks is wild. That's all I can tell you. Is this idea that it's probabilistic is breathtaking. And the product that we service to the miners today basically allows them to, every day they know they can get paid and they don't have to worry about it. But the reality is, Rapha, you're making your team, you're making 50 billion times a billion guesses a second. That's a lot of work. And at the end of the day, you literally walk into the casino, you spin the dial, and you either win or you lose. Like, how do you run an operation? How do you pay the utilities? How do you pay your employees when you're gambling every day at the end of the day? Now, it's one of the most beautiful things about Bitcoin because it can't be gamed, right? Like, and that's like Larry Fink doesn't know that yet, right? I know like BlackRock is like, okay, we're going to be able to like get an edge or an advantage, and you can't, especially with Bitcoin mining. It's really powerful thing. But in order to be able to have billion-dollar revenue companies and be able to back them, we have to work together, which is what the pool is. Like, we're all working together to make sure that everybody can get paid every day. So I think it's really important what we do and kind of how we're doing it.
It's a very tough business. Like, we ran the numbers on all the pools. We've been supporters of Ocean from the beginning. And I remember having a conversation with Mike, maybe, I don't know, a year ago or something, or like, Mike, I want to make my own block template. And he's like, yeah, we'll do it. But the problem is that no other public miners want to do it, right? I can't stop everything that I'm doing to do that now. You're the only one that cares. You told me that. You're the only one that cares about that, which blew my mind. Like, the fact that you told me that, I expected that everybody wanted to do that, right? At the end of the day, it's my hash rate. I want to build the block, right? I want to have control of the block. And the fact that, nobody cares, it really tells you something about and maybe that's why a lot of them are shifting to AI HPCs, because they were never Bitcoiners to begin with, right?